What if everything you've been taught about success, control, and happiness was actually making your life harder? We grow up believing that to achieve our dreams, we have to push, grind, and force our way through obstacles. We're told that the more we control, the more secure we'll feel. That happiness comes from chasing after the next big thing: money, relationships, recognition. But what if the real secret to fulfillment wasn't about trying harder, but about letting go? What if true mastery of life came not from effort, but from alignment with something far greater than our own desires? This is the paradox at the heart of Taoism, an ancient philosophy that challenges everything we think we know about life. And at the center of it all is Lao Tzu, a mysterious sage whose wisdom has shaped some of the greatest thinkers in history. We're going to dive into 10 of his most powerful teachings, lessons that will shift the way you see success, control, and even yourself. By the end of this video, you won't just understand Taoism, you'll have a new perspective on life itself. Lao Tzu is one of the most enigmatic figures in all of philosophy. Unlike other great thinkers, we don't even know if he truly existed. His name, which means old master, suggests wisdom accumulated over time. But whether he was a real person or a legendary figure, his teachings have shaped Eastern philosophy for over 2,500 years. According to legend, Lao Tzu was a government archivist in ancient China, someone deeply familiar with the workings of society and power. But as he grew older, he became disillusioned with the world of politics, corruption, and ambition. He saw people constantly chasing after wealth, status, and control, yet still feeling empty. Frustrated, he decided to leave civilization behind, riding on an ox towards the western mountains. As he reached the final gate of the kingdom, a guard recognized him and begged him to write down his wisdom before he disappeared forever. Lao Tzu agreed, and in a single sitting, he composed what is now known as the Tao Te Ching, a book of just 81 short verses that contains some of the most profound wisdom ever written. And then, just as mysteriously as he had appeared, Lao Tzu vanished, never to be seen again. His teachings, however, would go on to inspire millions, influencing Zen Buddhism, martial arts, poetry, and even modern psychology. But what exactly is Taoism, and why is it so different from everything we've been taught? At its core, Taoism is about alignment with the natural flow of life. The word Tao means the way, not a rigid set of rules, but the fundamental order of the universe, like the flow of a river or the changing of the seasons. Taoism teaches that everything in nature operates in perfect harmony, not by force, but by balance. The trees don't struggle to grow. The rivers don't force their way to the ocean. They follow their own natural course, and yet everything gets accomplished. This idea of effortless action is called Wu Wei, and it's one of the most misunderstood yet powerful concepts in all of philosophy. Most people think that success comes from relentless effort, from constantly pushing forward, but Taoism suggests the opposite, that by learning to move with the current rather than against it, we can achieve more with less struggle. This doesn't mean laziness, it means understanding when to act and when to let things unfold naturally. Imagine trying to hold water in your hands by squeezing it tightly. The harder you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. But if you relax your hands, the water stays. That's Wu Wei in action. Taoism also teaches that life is best lived simply, without unnecessary complexity. In a world obsessed with productivity hacks, overthinking and chasing after material things, Lao Tzu's wisdom reminds us that less is often more. True wisdom isn't about controlling everything, it's about understanding when to let go. At first, the idea of Wu Wei sounds strange. How can you take action without forcing anything? How can you achieve something without constant effort? It seems like a contradiction. After all, we've been taught that success only comes from hard work, from pushing through resistance, from exerting control over every detail of our lives. But Lao Tzu teaches something radically different. The more we struggle, the more we suffer. The more we force things, the more they resist us. Wu Wei is not about being passive or lazy. It's about moving in harmony with life, rather than fighting against it. Think about a river flowing down a mountain. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't force its way through obstacles. It simply moves around them, finding the easiest path, adapting to the terrain. And yet, over time, that gentle flow of water can carve through solid rock. That's the power of Wu Wei, effortless action that leads to deep, lasting impact. We can see this paradox in our own lives. Have you ever tried too hard at something, maybe in sports, at work, or even in a relationship, only to feel frustrated when things didn't go your way? Maybe you tried to force a creative breakthrough by thinking harder, only to come up empty. Or perhaps you desperately wanted someone to like you, but the more effort you put in, the more distant they became. This is the trap of over-efforting. When we force things, we create resistance. But when we relax, when we trust, when we allow things to happen naturally, we find that everything starts falling into place. The reason so many people feel stuck in life is because they are trying too hard in the wrong way. When you push too much, you tense up, both mentally and physically. This tension creates stress, anxiety, and burnout. You see it everywhere. Students who cram for exams and end up blanking out on test day, athletes who choke under pressure because they're trying too hard to be perfect, business people who burn out because they think success is about working longer hours rather than working smarter. Over-efforting leads to exhaustion, and exhaustion leads to frustration. Lao Tzu teaches that forcing things only makes them worse. Imagine trying to untangle a knot by pulling on it aggressively. The harder you pull, the tighter the knot becomes. But if you loosen your grip and gently work with the knot, it eventually unravels. Life works the same way. When we obsess over controlling every outcome, we create unnecessary struggle. We become impatient, frustrated, and stuck. But when we learn to step back and allow things to unfold naturally, solutions appear effortlessly. This doesn't mean we should sit around and do nothing. Wu Wei is not about being passive. It's about being aligned. When you act from a place of trust rather than fear, your actions become more powerful. Instead of forcing yourself to work harder, you start working smarter. Instead of trying to control people, you build relationships naturally. Instead of chasing happiness, you allow it to emerge from within. This is why Wu Wei is so important. It teaches us that true success comes not from struggle, but from flow. Many of the world's top performers, whether they know it or not, operate with the principles of Wu Wei. Take athletes, for example. When a basketball player is in the zone, they're not overthinking every movement. They're flowing effortlessly with the game. Their body moves instinctively, their mind is calm, and everything just works. This is Wu Wei in action. Perfect performance without excessive effort. The same happens in music, art, and even business. Great musicians don't force every note. They feel the rhythm and let it guide them. The best entrepreneurs don't panic and micromanage everything. They trust their vision and adapt as needed. Even martial artists, especially in disciplines like Tai Chi and Aikido, understand this principle deeply. In these arts, strength does not come from brute force, but from using an opponent's energy against them. Instead of resisting an attack, they redirect it, effortlessly neutralizing the threat. This is why smaller, weaker fighters can defeat larger, stronger opponents, not by fighting force with force, but by flowing with the energy of the moment. In the modern world, we often associate success with struggle. We admire people who grind, who hustle, who sacrifice everything for their goals. But the reality is that the highest level of mastery often comes when effort disappears, when things feel effortless. If you look at truly successful people in any field, you'll notice that they don't just work hard, they work harmoniously. They know when to push, but they also know when to step back and let things happen. The more you try to control every detail of your life, the more you block the natural flow of things. Many people obsess over making the right decisions, fearing that one wrong move will ruin everything. But Lao Tzu reminds us that life is not a straight line. It's a river, constantly shifting and changing. Instead of clinging to rigid plans, we should learn to move with the current. Think about how creativity works. If you sit down and force yourself to come up with a great idea, nothing happens. But when you relax, maybe while taking a walk, showering, or even just daydreaming, that's when inspiration strikes. This is because creativity flows best in a state of ease, not tension. The same applies to relationships. The more you try to control or impress someone, the less natural the connection feels. But when you relax and be yourself, everything flows smoothly. The key to mastery in any area of life is trust. Trust that things will unfold as they should. Trust that your hard work will pay off without the need for stress and anxiety. Trust that sometimes stepping back is just as important as stepping forward. So how do you actually apply Wu Wei in your daily life? The first step is to let go of the belief that struggle equals success. Hard work is important, but Wu Wei teaches us that there is a difference between working hard and working against ourselves. When you force things, you create resistance. When you move with the natural flow of life, you create momentum. One way to practice this is by observing nature. Watch how trees sway with the wind rather than resisting it. Notice how rivers find their way around obstacles instead of trying to push through them. This is how life is meant to be lived, not by brute force, but by adaptability and ease. Another practical step is to cultivate mindfulness. Pay attention to moments when you're trying too hard, when you're tense, when you're forcing things. Ask yourself, is there an easier way? Often the answer is yes. Whether you're working on a project, dealing with a difficult person, or making an important decision, remind yourself to relax, to breathe, and to trust. Finally, embrace patience. Many of life's greatest rewards come not from immediate action, but from allowing things to develop naturally. Just as a tree doesn't grow overnight, success, happiness, and wisdom take time. Rushing the process only leads to frustration. But if you learn to flow with life, to take action without force, to work without obsession, to move without resistance, you'll find that things begin to fall into place effortlessly. This is the power of Wu Wei. This is the path of the Tao. Have you ever thought about how secure your online presence really is? In today's world, your personal data is constantly at risk, which is why I use Surfshark VPN. It's a simple but powerful tool that encrypts your internet activity, protecting you from hackers, trackers, and even your internet provider. Plus, it lets you unlock content from over 100 countries. Whether you want to access your favorite shows or bypass censorship, it's all just one click away. But Surfshark doesn't stop at just protecting your online browsing. They also offer Surfshark Alert, which actively monitors the web for breaches that involve your email, passwords, or personal information. If your data is ever compromised, you'll get notified immediately so you can take action. use my link surfshark.com/successchasers or click the link in the description below and you'll get 4 extra months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. There's even a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's zero risk. Take control of your online life today. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Lao Tzu often used nature to explain the deepest truths of life, and one of his most famous metaphors is that of water. He said, "Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water, yet nothing can better overcome the hard and strong." At first, this might sound counterintuitive. How can something as gentle and formless as water be stronger than hard stone or metal? But if you observe nature, you'll see that this is exactly how the world works. Over time, flowing water can carve deep canyons into solid rock. Rain can wear down the tallest mountains. Waves can erode even the strongest cliffs. Water achieves this not by force, but by persistence, adaptability, and patience. Unlike rigid objects, which can break under pressure, water never resists. It simply moves around obstacles, finding the easiest path forward. If a river encounters a boulder, it doesn't try to push through it. Instead, it flows around it, wearing it down over time. This is the power of softness. Water never forces its way, yet it always reaches its destination. It moves effortlessly, yet it reshapes the world. This is the kind of strength that Lao Tzu encourages us to cultivate. A strength that doesn't come from brute force or stubbornness, but from adaptability, patience, and flow. Imagine a tree in a storm. A rigid tree with stiff branches will snap under the pressure of strong winds, while a flexible tree bends and sways, absorbing the impact without breaking. The same principle applies to human life. Those who are too rigid in their beliefs, too unwilling to change, or too obsessed with control often struggle the most when life throws unexpected challenges their way. But those who, like water, can adapt and adjust are the ones who endure, who grow, and who ultimately overcome even the toughest obstacles. In our modern world, strength is often associated with aggression, dominance, and an unbreakable will. We admire people who refuse to back down, who push forward no matter the cost. But Lao Tzu teaches us that true strength is not found in resistance, but in the ability to yield when necessary. This doesn't mean being weak or passive. It means understanding when to push and when to let go. Think about an argument. When two people stubbornly refuse to budge, the conflict escalates. Neither side listens, and both walk away frustrated. But when one person chooses to step back, to listen, and to understand, the tension dissolves. They don't lose, they simply shift their approach, much like water moving around a rock. This is the power of yielding. The same applies to personal struggles. If you've ever been stuck in life, trying desperately to force something to happen, whether it's success, love, or happiness, you've probably felt the frustration of resistance. The harder you push, the more things seem to push back. But when you stop resisting and instead allow life to unfold naturally, things often start to fall into place. This doesn't mean giving up on your goals, but rather recognizing that sometimes the best way forward is not through force, but through patience, adaptability, and trust. Many people misunderstand yielding as weakness, but in reality, it takes far more strength to remain flexible than to remain rigid. A person who refuses to adapt is like a dried-up branch, brittle and easily broken. But a person who can bend and adjust, who can flow with the challenges of life, is unbreakable. One of the best modern examples of this philosophy comes from Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist. He was deeply influenced by Lao Tzu's teachings, and one of his most famous quotes perfectly captures the power of flexibility.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Bruce Lee understood that true mastery in martial arts or in life was not about being rigid and unchanging, but about adapting to whatever situation arose. In a fight, if you're too stiff, you become predictable and easy to defeat. But if you're fluid and responsive, you can adjust in real time, making you nearly impossible to pin down. This principle applies far beyond martial arts. In business, companies that refuse to adapt to changing trends and technologies often fail, while those that remain flexible survive and thrive. Think of how companies like Blockbuster clung to outdated models, while Netflix adapted to the digital age. In personal growth, people who stubbornly cling to old habits and beliefs often get stuck in life, while those who are open to learning and changing continue to evolve. The same applies to relationships. Many relationships fail not because of a lack of love, but because one or both partners refuse to compromise or adapt. When people insist on being right all the time, when they refuse to see another perspective, conflicts become endless. But when both partners are willing to listen, to adjust, and to flow with the changes that life brings, the relationship becomes stronger. Resilience is not about being unmovable. It's about being able to move with the waves of life without losing yourself. It's about knowing when to stand firm and when to let go. When you learn to be adaptable, challenges don't break you. Instead, they shape you, just as water shapes stone. Many of the biggest problems in life come from stubbornness, the refusal to change, to listen, or to let go. When people are too rigid in their beliefs, they stop growing. When businesses refuse to evolve, they become irrelevant. When relationships become about winning rather than understanding, they fall apart. Consider a person who refuses to admit they're wrong, even when the evidence is clear. Their pride keeps them stuck in ignorance. Or think about someone who is so fixated on a specific career path that they ignore new opportunities, only to realize years later that they were holding themselves back. In business, history is filled with examples of companies that failed because they refused to adapt. Kodak ignored digital photography, Nokia ignored smartphones, and both lost everything. On a personal level, stubbornness can lead to unnecessary suffering. How many people stay in toxic relationships because they refuse to accept that it's time to move on? How many people resist change even when it's clear that their old ways aren't working? Holding on too tightly, whether to a person, a belief, or a plan, often leads to frustration and pain. But when you learn to release, to adjust, to move with life instead of against it, everything becomes easier. So how can you apply this principle in your daily life? The first step is to become aware of where you are resisting change. Are there areas in your life where you are being too rigid? Are you holding on to outdated beliefs, toxic relationships, or unrealistic expectations? Start noticing when you feel frustrated, stuck, or overwhelmed. These are often signs that you are resisting instead of flowing. The next step is to practice flexibility. This doesn't mean you should have no goals or boundaries, but it does mean being open to adjustments. If something isn't working, instead of pushing harder, ask yourself, is there another way? Sometimes the best solution isn't to force an outcome, but to shift your approach. Finally, trust in the natural flow of life. Just as water always finds its way, so too will you, if you learn to move with the current instead of against it. Let go of the need to control everything. Be patient, be adaptable, be like water, because in the end, the softest thing in the world truly does overcome the hardest. Lao Tzu once wrote, "Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom." At first glance, this might sound simple. Of course, understanding other people requires intelligence, and understanding yourself seems like a good thing. But if we look deeper, this teaching reveals something profound about how most people live their lives. We are taught from a young age that intelligence is about learning facts, mastering skills, and understanding how the world works. We admire people who can analyze complex problems, memorize vast amounts of information, or explain difficult concepts with ease. And while this kind of external knowledge is useful, it is not the same as wisdom. Intelligence is about knowing the world outside of you, science, history, politics, business. But wisdom is about knowing yourself, your fears, desires, habits, and motivations. Someone can be incredibly smart in a traditional sense, capable of solving equations, debating philosophy, or running a business, but if they don't understand their own mind, they will still struggle in life. Wisdom is about self-awareness. It's about understanding your own emotions, recognizing your own weaknesses, and being honest about your motivations. You might be able to read other people well, predict their behavior, and even manipulate social situations to your advantage. But if you don't understand why you do what you do, then you are just a prisoner of your own impulses. True wisdom isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing yourself deeply enough to navigate life with clarity. One of the biggest obstacles to self-awareness is the constant search for validation. Many people spend their entire lives trying to impress others, seeking approval, and comparing themselves to those around them. Social media has made this worse than ever. People measure their worth by likes, followers, and comments. Instead of asking, "Who am I?" people ask, "How do I look to others?" They chase intelligence in the form of achievements, status, and external success, but they never take the time to understand their own minds. This endless comparison creates suffering. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you will always feel either superior or inferior, and both of these feelings are traps. If you feel superior, you become arrogant, blind to your own flaws. If you feel inferior, you become insecure, constantly seeking more validation. Either way, you are not truly in control of yourself. You are being controlled by outside forces, by the opinions and judgments of others. Many people don't even realize they are trapped in this cycle. They go through life thinking they are making independent choices, but in reality, they are just reacting to external pressures. They choose careers not because they love them, but because society values them. They chase wealth not because they need it, but because they think it will make them more respected. They follow trends, beliefs, and lifestyles that were never truly their own. And then, years later, they wonder why they feel empty, unfulfilled, or lost. Lao Tzu's wisdom reminds us that true fulfillment doesn't come from knowing what others think or from winning their approval. It comes from knowing yourself so deeply that you no longer need external validation. The more you understand yourself, the less you need the approval of the world. Every meaningful change in life starts with self-awareness. You cannot grow, improve, or find true happiness if you don't first understand who you are. If you don't know your own weaknesses, how can you fix them? If you don't understand what truly makes you happy, how can you chase the right goals? If you are blind to your own patterns, you will keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Many people try to change their lives without first understanding themselves, and this is why they fail. They jump from one job to another, one relationship to another, one goal to another, always hoping that the next thing will make them happy. But external change means nothing if your internal world remains the same. No matter where you go, no matter what you achieve, you will always bring yourself with you. If you don't know yourself, then no amount of external success will ever satisfy you. This is why wisdom is more important than intelligence. Intelligence can help you succeed in the external world, but wisdom helps you succeed in the internal world. Intelligence might get you a high-paying job, but wisdom helps you understand what truly fulfills you. Intelligence can help you win arguments, but wisdom helps you avoid unnecessary conflicts. Intelligence can teach you how to impress people, but wisdom helps you build real, meaningful relationships. In today's world, distractions make self-awareness harder than ever. People are constantly bombarded with noise, news, advertisements, opinions, entertainment. Many people never sit in silence, never spend time alone with their own thoughts. They are always consuming, always reacting, never pausing to reflect. But without introspection, without self-examination, personal growth is impossible. If you don't take the time to understand yourself, then you will be at the mercy of outside influences for your entire life. The modern world is designed to keep people distracted. Every time you feel uncomfortable, there is a quick way to escape. Scroll through your phone, watch a video, play a game, text a friend. People rarely sit with their own thoughts anymore, and this is a big problem. When you are constantly distracting yourself, you never develop a deep understanding of your own mind. You avoid your fears, your insecurities, and your deeper questions. You never ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I keep making the same mistakes? What do I really want? Many people confuse distraction with happiness. They keep themselves busy so they don't have to face their own thoughts. But real happiness doesn't come from running away. It comes from knowing yourself well enough that you don't need distractions to feel at peace. True wisdom means being comfortable with silence, with solitude, with your own mind. If you are always running from yourself, then no matter how much intelligence you have, you will always feel lost. Lao Tzu's message is clear. You cannot find fulfillment in the outside world if you have not first found it within yourself. Wisdom is about looking inward, questioning your own mind, and learning to be at peace with who you are. So how can you develop self-awareness? How can you truly know yourself? Here are 3 powerful techniques that will help. Meditation is one of the most effective ways to develop self-awareness. It allows you to observe your thoughts without getting lost in them. Most people go through life without realizing how much their mind controls them. Meditation helps you step back and watch your thoughts like a spectator, which gives you a deeper understanding of your emotions, fears, and desires. Start with just 5 to 10 minutes a day of sitting in silence and observing your breath. Over time, you'll notice patterns in your thinking and become more aware of your own mental habits. Journaling. Writing down your thoughts forces you to confront them. It helps you see your emotions clearly and track your progress over time. Try writing down your feelings at the end of each day. What made you happy? What frustrated you? What thoughts kept repeating in your mind? The more you write, the more you will understand yourself. Journaling also helps you notice patterns. If you keep struggling with the same problem, writing about it will make you more conscious of it, allowing you to change. Solitude. Spending time alone, without distractions, is essential for self-awareness. Go for a walk without your phone. Sit in a quiet room without music or social media. Just be with your own thoughts. At first, this might feel uncomfortable, but over time, you'll start to enjoy the clarity it brings. Solitude helps you reconnect with your inner world, away from the noise of society. The more time you spend understanding yourself, the less you will rely on external validation. You will stop comparing yourself to others, stop chasing meaningless goals, and start living in alignment with your true self. This is the wisdom that Lao Tzu speaks of, not just knowing the world, but knowing yourself deeply enough to walk your own path with confidence. Lao Tzu teaches that desire is one of the main causes of human suffering. He believed that when we are constantly wanting more success, more possessions, more recognition, we create endless dissatisfaction in our lives. This is because desire is a never-ending cycle. As soon as we get what we want, a new desire takes its place. We achieve one goal and immediately set another. We buy something new, and soon it loses its excitement. No matter how much we acquire, there is always something else to chase. Taoism teaches that true peace comes not from fulfilling every desire, but from freeing ourselves from the grip of constant wanting. This doesn't mean we should never have goals or ambitions, but rather that we should not become attached to them. There is a big difference between working towards something with a sense of joy and purpose, versus feeling like we need something to be happy. The first approach leads to a peaceful and fulfilling life, while the second leads to endless frustration. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you grasp it tightly, trying to hold on to every grain, it slips through your fingers. But if you keep your hand open and relaxed, the sand stays. Life works the same way. The more we cling to things, money, relationships, success, the more they tend to slip away. But when we approach life with an open heart, enjoying what we have without being obsessed with more, we find true contentment. Lao Tzu encourages us to shift our mindset from chasing happiness to allowing happiness. Instead of believing that happiness comes from achieving, owning, or proving something, we should understand that happiness is a state of being, one that is available to us when we stop trying to control everything and simply live in harmony with the present moment. The problem with desire is that it never truly ends. The moment we satisfy one craving, another one takes its place. This is why so many people go through life feeling unfulfilled, even if they have everything they once wished for. A person might dream of getting rich, thinking money will make them happy. But once they have wealth, they start wanting status. Once they have status, they start wanting fame. Once they have fame, they start wanting privacy. The cycle never stops. This is because desire is based on the idea that happiness exists somewhere in the future, rather than in the present. We tell ourselves, I will be happy when I get this job, when I buy this house, when I find the right partner. But when we finally get what we want, we quickly adjust to it, and the feeling of happiness fades. This is known as the hedonic treadmill, a psychological phenomenon where no matter how much our circumstances improve, we always return to our baseline level of happiness. Lao Tzu's wisdom teaches us that the only way to break free from this cycle is to change our relationship with desire itself. Instead of constantly chasing after the next thing, we should learn to appreciate what we already have. Instead of believing that happiness is something we must achieve, we should recognize that it is something we can cultivate within ourselves. Taoism does not say that we should have no desires at all. Wanting to grow, to learn, to create, these are natural parts of being human. The key is to desire without attachment. This means working towards something without believing that our happiness depends on it. It means enjoying the journey rather than obsessing over the destination. When we stop believing that external things will complete us, we finally become free. Modern society is built on feeding our desires. Everywhere we look, we are bombarded with messages telling us that we need more money, better clothes, the newest phone, the perfect body. Advertisers spend billions of dollars every year creating a sense of lack within us, making us believe that we are not enough as we are. And because we are constantly being told that happiness comes from external things, we keep chasing after them, never realizing that the game is rigged. Social media has made this even worse. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are designed to trigger our desires. They show us carefully curated versions of other people's lives, making us feel like we are missing out. They use algorithms to keep us addicted, constantly craving more likes, more followers, more attention. The moment we get a notification, our brain releases dopamine, the same chemical involved in addiction. But just like with any other drug, the high is temporary. Once it wears off, we need another hit. This is why so many people feel empty despite spending hours scrolling through their feeds. The problem isn't social media itself, it's our attachment to it. Many people measure their self-worth based on how many likes they get or how perfect their life looks online. They become trapped in a cycle of seeking validation from others, rather than finding happiness within themselves. Lao Tzu's teachings remind us that this kind of attachment only leads to suffering. When we rely on external things for happiness, whether it's material possessions, social approval, or personal achievements, we give away our power. We become slaves to things that are always changing, always outside our control. True peace comes from stepping outside this cycle. It comes from realizing that we don't need to constantly chase, constantly compare, constantly prove ourselves. The less we depend on external things to make us happy, the more freedom we have to simply enjoy life as it is. Some people misunderstand Taoism and think that it promotes laziness or a lack of ambition. This is not true. Taoism does not say we should stop working toward our goals. It simply teaches us to do so with a sense of ease rather than desperation. There is a difference between working towards something with passion and being obsessed with achieving it. Natural ambition comes from a place of inspiration. It is when we create, learn, or grow simply because we love doing it. A musician who plays because they love music, a writer who writes because they enjoy expressing ideas. This is natural ambition. Unhealthy attachment, on the other hand, comes from a place of insecurity. It is when we feel that we need to achieve something in order to be happy, successful, or worthy. A person who works 80 hours a week, not because they love their job, but because they are terrified of failure. That is attachment. Lao Tzu's wisdom teaches us to act without attachment. This means pursuing our dreams, but not allowing our happiness to depend on them. It means striving for success, but not becoming so fixated on it that we forget to enjoy life. It means doing our best, but also knowing when to let go. If we want to free ourselves from the suffering caused by desire, we need to cultivate a mindset of detachment and simplicity. Here are some practical ways to do this. Practice gratitude. Instead of focusing on what you lack, focus on what you already have. Each day, take a moment to appreciate the good things in your life. This shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Limit unnecessary consumption. Be mindful of how much time, money, and energy you spend chasing things that don't truly bring you joy. Simplify your life by letting go of what you don't need. Detach from external validation. Stop seeking approval from others. Focus on being your authentic self, rather than trying to impress or compete with people. Meditate on impermanence. Remind yourself that everything in life is temporary. Possessions, achievements, even emotions. Learning to accept this makes it easier to let go. Enjoy the present moment. Instead of always thinking about the future, practice being fully present in whatever you are doing. Happiness is not in the next goal. It is in the here and now. When we detach from constant wanting, we discover something incredible: peace, freedom, and a deep sense of contentment. Instead of running toward happiness, we realize that it was always within us, waiting to be found. Lao Tzu teaches that the best way to live is to flow with life rather than trying to force it into a rigid structure. One of his most famous teachings is, "A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving." At first, this might sound strange. How can a traveler not have a plan? Isn't having a destination and a map the key to success? But what Lao Tzu is really teaching is that when we become too attached to specific plans, we lose the ability to experience life as it naturally unfolds. Imagine someone who plans every moment of a trip down to the smallest detail. They create strict schedules, they have a fixed itinerary, and they feel stressed when things don't go exactly as expected. If a flight is delayed, if the weather changes, if something unexpected happens, they become frustrated and anxious. Now, compare that to a traveler who has a general idea of where they want to go but is open to change. If they stumble upon a beautiful place, they stay longer. If they meet interesting people, they adjust their plans. They experience life as it comes, rather than trying to force it into a pre-planned script. Taoism teaches that life itself is a journey, and the best way to travel through it is with openness and flexibility. When we become obsessed with our plans and expectations, we miss out on the beauty of the present moment. When we cling too tightly to a specific path, we ignore other possibilities that might be even better. Just like a traveler who explores freely, we should learn to approach life with a sense of curiosity and adventure, rather than fear and control. Many people believe that in order to succeed, they must have everything planned out in advance. Society encourages us to create detailed life plans: what career to pursue, when to get married, how much money to save, where to live. From a young age, we are told to set clear goals and follow a step-by-step path toward achievement. While having goals can be useful, the problem comes when we become so rigid that we cannot adapt when life takes an unexpected turn. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much we plan, things will not always go the way we expect. Jobs change, relationships evolve, opportunities come and go. If we are too attached to a specific outcome, we set ourselves up for disappointment. People who cling to their plans often become frustrated anxious, or even depressed when things don't go according to their expectations. Instead of adjusting and finding new opportunities, they feel like they have failed. A common example of this is people who enter a career because they planned it when they were younger, only to realize years later that they hate their job. But instead of changing paths, they stay because they are afraid to abandon their plan. They have spent so much time and energy pursuing a certain goal that they don't want to admit that it no longer serves them. This is what happens when we prioritize rigid plans over present moment awareness. Instead of living with flexibility, we become prisoners of our own expectations. Lao Tzu's wisdom reminds us that it is okay to change direction. Life is not a straight line. It is a flowing river. When we let go of rigid plans, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We stop seeing unexpected changes as problems and start seeing them as opportunities. We stop resisting life and start working with it. One of the biggest causes of stress and anxiety in modern life is the obsession with control. Many people believe that if they plan every detail of their future, they can avoid uncertainty and guarantee success. But in reality, over-planning often leads to more stress, not less. The more we try to control everything, the more frustrated we become when things don't go as expected. Think about how often people stress about the future, worrying about their career, their finances, their relationships. They spend so much time trying to predict and control what will happen that they forget to actually live. But no amount of planning can eliminate uncertainty. Unexpected events will always happen. The economy might change. A new opportunity might appear. A relationship might take a different course. When we over-plan, we create an illusion of control, but life always finds a way to remind us that we are not in charge. Another problem with over-planning is that it can lead to missed opportunities. When we become too focused on a specific goal, we often ignore other possibilities that might be even better. Imagine someone who is so determined to follow their planned career path that they ignore a new passion that excites them. Or someone who is so committed to a relationship that they ignore red flags because it doesn't fit their original vision of their future. When we are too attached to a plan, we become blind to other paths that might lead to even greater happiness. The most successful and fulfilled people are often those who remain open to change. They may have general goals, but they are not afraid to adjust their path when new opportunities arise. They trust that life will unfold in unexpected ways, and instead of resisting, they embrace it. This ability to adapt is what allows them to thrive, no matter what challenges come their way. History is filled with stories of people who achieved success not by rigidly sticking to a plan, but by being adaptable and open to change. Some of the greatest innovators, entrepreneurs, and artists found their path by accident, not because they planned it, but because they were willing to explore new directions. One famous example is Steve Jobs. When he dropped out of college, he didn't have a clear plan for his future. Instead of following a traditional career path, he explored his interests. He took a calligraphy class simply because he found it interesting, not knowing that years later it would influence the elegant design of Apple computers. If Jobs had rigidly stuck to a pre-planned career, he might never have created the groundbreaking technology that changed the world. Another example is J.K. Rowling. Before she became one of the most successful authors in history, she faced multiple failures. She had planned to work in a steady job, but life had other ideas. After going through personal struggles, she found herself writing Harry Potter while living in difficult circumstances. If she had stubbornly clung to her original plans, she might never have pursued writing as a career. Her success came not from rigid planning, but from adapting to life's unexpected turns. These stories show that the best opportunities often come from unexpected places. The most successful people are not those who stick rigidly to a plan, but those who are open to change and willing to take a different path when life presents a new opportunity. So how can we apply this wisdom in our own lives? The key is to develop a mindset of trust and adaptability. Here are some practical ways to embrace spontaneity and let go of rigid planning. Set general goals, but stay flexible. It's good to have a direction in life, but don't become obsessed with a specific path. Allow yourself to adjust when new opportunities arise. Practice present moment awareness. Instead of constantly worrying about the future, focus on what is happening right now. Appreciate the small joys of daily life. Say yes to new experiences. Be open to unexpected opportunities. Try new things, meet new people, and explore different paths. Let go of the need for certainty. Accept that life is unpredictable. Instead of fearing the unknown, see it as an adventure. Trust yourself. Believe that no matter what happens, you will be able to handle it. Life may not always go as planned, but that doesn't mean it won't turn out even better. When we stop trying to control everything and start flowing with life, we experience more joy, less stress, and greater fulfillment. The best journeys are often the ones we never planned. The best opportunities are often the ones we never expected. A good traveler has no fixed plans, not because they are lost, but because they trust the journey. In today's world, power is often associated with control, dominance, and authority. People believe that to be powerful, they must assert themselves over others, command respect through force, and always be in charge. This belief is reinforced by society, whether in politics, business, or personal relationships. We are taught that the person with the most control is the one who wins. But Lao Tzu presents a completely different view of power. He teaches that true strength does not come from force, but from letting go of the need to control it all. The person who is truly powerful does not dominate, they influence. They do not force outcomes, they align with them. The illusion of power is that control equals security. People seek control because they fear uncertainty. They believe that if they can just control their employees, their children, their relationships, or their circumstances, they will be safe. But control is always an illusion, because life is inherently unpredictable. No matter how much power someone appears to have, they can never control everything. A king might rule over a nation, but he cannot control the weather, the thoughts of his people, or the passage of time. A CEO might run a company, but they cannot control the market, the competition, or the emotions of their employees. The moment someone believes they have absolute control, they set themselves up for failure because reality will always prove them wrong. This is why dictators, tyrants, and aggressive leaders eventually fall. They believe that their power will last forever, that their force will keep them in control. But history shows that those who rule with fear and oppression do not stay in power long. People eventually resist. Systems eventually collapse. And the ones who rise to true greatness are not those who force their will upon others, but those who understand the deeper nature of power, one rooted in humility, adaptability, and service rather than control. One of Lao Tzu's most profound teachings is that the strongest person is the one who does not need to show their strength. He compares true leaders to water, soft, flexible, and humble, yet capable of wearing down even the hardest rock over time. Water does not try to control its surroundings, it simply flows. It does not fight obstacles, it moves around them. It does not need to prove its power is self-evident. The strongest leaders are not the ones who impose their will through intimidation, but those who inspire naturally. The best warriors are not the ones who fight every battle, but those who avoid unnecessary conflict. The wisest people are not those who claim to know everything, but those who are humble enough to keep learning. Humility is a paradox. The moment someone feels the need to prove their power, they reveal their insecurity. True confidence does not need validation. A strong person does not need to tell others they are strong. They simply are. A wise person does not need to boast about their wisdom. They let their actions speak for themselves. A great leader does not need to demand loyalty. People follow them willingly. Service is another misunderstood form of power. Many think that serving others is a sign of weakness, but in reality, it is one of the greatest forms of strength. The best leaders serve their people, not the other way around. The most influential figures in history did not seek power for themselves. They uplifted others, and in doing so, they became powerful beyond measure. Their leadership was not based on control, but on compassion. People followed them because they inspired trust, not because they demanded obedience. Lao Tzu teaches that power should never be about personal gain. When someone desires power for the sake of control, they become weak because they depend on external validation. But when someone wields power as a responsibility to serve, they become truly unstoppable. The most powerful person in the room is not the loudest or the most aggressive. It is the one who does not need to prove anything at all. It may seem counterintuitive, but the people who leave the greatest impact on the world are often the ones who think the least about themselves. This is because true influence comes from connection, not coercion. When someone acts purely out of self-interest, they may achieve short-term success, but they will never inspire genuine loyalty or respect. On the other hand, those who serve others naturally gain influence because people trust them, respect them, and want to follow them. Take the example of great teachers. The best teachers are not the ones who lecture endlessly to prove their intelligence, but those who genuinely care about their students' growth. They do not see themselves as above others, but rather as guides who help others find their own wisdom. Because of this, their influence lasts far beyond the classroom. Their students carry their lessons for a lifetime. The same applies to business leaders. The most successful companies are often led by people who prioritize serving their employees and customers, rather than just maximizing their own profits. Leaders who care about their people create workplaces where employees feel valued, and as a result, those employees are more motivated, more loyal, and more productive. In contrast, leaders who rule through fear and control create toxic environments where people do the bare minimum to avoid punishment. The difference is clear. Power built on service is sustainable, while power built on force eventually collapses. Even in personal relationships, the most respected people are those who give freely without expecting anything in return. A person who constantly demands respect, validation, and attention will eventually drive others away. But someone who gives support, kindness, and wisdom without seeking reward naturally attracts meaningful relationships. People are drawn to those who uplift them, not those who try to control them. Lao Tzu teaches that influence is like a shadow. If you chase it, it runs away, but if you walk forward with purpose, it follows you effortlessly. When you stop seeking power for yourself and instead focus on helping others, you gain more power than you ever could by force. Lao Tzu's wisdom is more relevant today than ever. In an age where leadership is often associated with ego, competition, and control, his teachings offer a refreshing perspective. True leadership is not about commanding. It is about inspiring. It is not about taking. It is about giving. Many of the world's most effective leaders apply these principles, whether consciously or not. Companies like Patagonia prioritize ethical business practices, putting people and the environment over excessive profit, and as a result, they have earned deep customer loyalty. Visionary leaders like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos succeed not because they seek control, but because they create ideas so powerful that people want to follow them. Even in politics, the most beloved leaders are those who lead with humility, not arrogance. The best leaders understand that power is not something to be seized. It is something that is given freely by others. The moment you have to force people to follow you, you have already lost. The leaders who last are the ones who serve, who uplift, and who empower others rather than just themselves. So how can we apply this wisdom to our own lives? Whether you are a leader in your career, in your community, or even in your personal relationships, here are some ways to lead through influence rather than force. Listen more than you speak. The most powerful leaders are not the ones who talk the most, but the ones who truly listen. When you understand others deeply, you gain their trust and respect. Lead by example. Instead of telling people what to do, show them through your own actions. Be the kind of person you want others to follow. Serve rather than command. The best way to gain influence is by helping others succeed. Support those around you, and they will naturally support you in return. Let go of the need to prove yourself. Confidence does not come from forcing others to recognize your power. It comes from being secure enough that you do not need validation. Trust in the natural flow of influence. You do not need to seize power. It will come naturally when you act with integrity, wisdom, and humility. True power is not about having control over others. It is about having control over yourself. When you let go of the need for power, you become truly powerful. Lao Tzu teaches that simplicity is not just a lifestyle choice, it is a path to wisdom, clarity, and peace. In a world that constantly tells us that more is better, more possessions, more information, more responsibilities, Taoism reminds us that true sophistication comes from understanding what is essential and letting go of everything else. When we remove the unnecessary, we create space for what truly matters. Simplicity applies to every area of life. In our thoughts, it means not overcomplicating things, not dwelling on useless worries, and not filling our minds with unnecessary noise. In our possessions, it means owning only what we need and value, rather than hoarding things just for the sake of having them. In our actions, it means focusing on what is meaningful and effective, rather than wasting energy on distractions. Simplicity does not mean deprivation. It means clarity. It means choosing what is truly important and letting go of everything that clutters our minds, our homes, and our lives. Most people believe that a complex life is an advanced life, but this is an illusion. Complexity often leads to stress, confusion, and inefficiency. When we have too much clutter, whether mental, physical, or emotional, it becomes harder to focus, harder to think, and harder to enjoy life. Simplicity, on the other hand, brings peace. A simple life is not an empty life, it is a life filled only with what is meaningful. The fewer distractions we have, the more energy we can devote to what truly fulfills us. One of the biggest misconceptions in modern society is that complexity equals intelligence. Many people believe that the more complicated something is, the more impressive it must be. We admire experts who use big words, technology that is packed with features, and ideas that seem difficult to understand. But Lao Tzu's philosophy reminds us that true intelligence is about making things simple, not making them complicated. Consider the greatest minds in history. Albert Einstein, one of the most brilliant physicists of all time, once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple, believed that simplicity was the highest form of sophistication. He understood that technology should be intuitive, not confusing. That's why Apple products became so successful. Not because they were filled with unnecessary features, but because they were designed to be simple, elegant, and easy to use. Complexity is often a sign of confusion, not intelligence. Many people overcomplicate things because they don't fully understand them. They add unnecessary steps, overthink problems, and make things harder than they need to be. But those who truly master a subject can break it down into its simplest form. This is why the wisest teachers make learning feel effortless. They strip away the unnecessary details and get straight to the essence of what matters. Lao Tzu teaches that wisdom is about seeing the natural simplicity of things. Nature itself is simple, yet profoundly effective. A tree grows without needing instructions. A river flows without needing complex systems. The natural way of the universe operates effortlessly. When we align ourselves with this principle of simplicity, our lives become clearer, more peaceful, and more effective. One of the greatest secrets of highly successful people is that they simplify their lives as much as possible. They understand that complexity is a distraction, so they remove anything that does not contribute to their goals. Take Steve Jobs as an example. He wore the same type of outfit every day, black turtleneck jeans and sneakers. Why? Because he didn't want to waste mental energy deciding what to wear. He realized that small decisions, when repeated every day, add up and drain mental focus. By simplifying this aspect of his life, he freed up energy for more important things. The same principle applies to many other high achievers. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs, athletes, and creatives limit their daily choices so they can focus on what truly matters. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt every day. Warren Buffett lives in the same modest house he bought decades ago. Many elite athletes follow strict, simple routines so they don't have to think about what to eat, when to train, or how to prepare. They remove unnecessary decisions from their lives, allowing them to direct their energy toward their most important work. This idea extends beyond personal habits. It applies to businesses, strategies, and even creative work. The best products are often the simplest. The most effective strategies are the ones that cut away the unnecessary steps. The most inspiring speeches are often the ones with the fewest words. Simplicity is powerful because it removes distractions and makes things clearer, more efficient, and more impactful. Lao Tzu teaches that we should take this approach to every aspect of our lives. Instead of making things more complicated, we should ask ourselves, what is truly important? What can I remove? When we simplify, we create more space for what actually matters. One of the biggest problems in today's world is that we are constantly surrounded by unnecessary complexity. We live in an age of information overload. Every day we are bombarded with endless choices, constant notifications, and a never-ending stream of opinions, news, and entertainment. Think about how many choices you face each day. What to eat, what to wear, what to watch, what to buy. Social media alone is filled with countless voices, all competing for your attention. Advertisers try to convince you that you need more products. News outlets try to keep you hooked on fear and outrage. Businesses keep creating new features, new options, new distractions. It's easy to get lost in this sea of complexity, feeling overwhelmed, anxious and drained. But what if you didn't have to engage with all of it? What if you could step back and simplify your world? Taoism teaches us that much of what we consider important is actually just noise. Many of the things we stress about are unnecessary. Many of the things we chase after don't bring real happiness. Instead of getting caught up in the chaos, we can choose a simpler path. By eliminating the unnecessary, we create more time, more focus, and more peace. We stop wasting energy on things that don't matter and start focusing on what truly enriches our lives. So how can we apply this wisdom in our daily lives? Here are some practical ways to simplify. Declutter your physical space. A cluttered environment creates a cluttered mind. Go through your belongings and ask yourself, do I truly need this? Does it bring value to my life? Let go of anything that is just taking up space. A clean, simple environment leads to a more peaceful mind. Limit your choices. Reduce the number of decisions you make each day. This could mean simplifying your wardrobe, eating similar meals, or creating routines that remove unnecessary choices. The fewer decisions you have to make, the more mental energy you conserve. Reduce mental clutter. Be mindful of what you consume. Limit social media, unnecessary news, and negative influences. Choose quality over quantity when it comes to information, entertainment, and even relationships. Prioritize what matters. Identify the few things that truly matter to you and focus on them. Cut out activities, commitments, and distractions that don't contribute to your well-being. When you stop trying to do everything, you can focus on what is truly meaningful. Embrace stillness and simplicity. Spend time in silence, meditate, go for a walk without your phone, slow down and appreciate the simple moments in life. True peace comes not from doing more, but from needing less. When we simplify, we free ourselves. We stop wasting time on things that don't matter and start living with more clarity, more purpose, and more joy. Lao Tzu's wisdom teaches us that simplicity is not about having less. It's about making space for more of what truly matters. Lao Tzu teaches us one of the most calming and reassuring truths about life. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. This simple yet profound statement reveals a deep wisdom. Life unfolds in its own time, without force, without struggle, without unnecessary rush. Look at the natural world. Trees grow at their own pace, flowers bloom when the season is right, rivers flow to the ocean without needing to be pushed. There is no anxiety in nature, no desperate attempts to speed things up, and yet everything gets done. The sun rises, the seasons change, and life continues in perfect harmony. Contrast this with human behavior. We are always in a hurry. We rush to grow up, to succeed, to get ahead. We are impatient with ourselves, with others, with life itself. If we set a goal, we want to achieve it immediately. If we start learning a new skill, we get frustrated if we don't master it quickly. If we don't see immediate results, we feel like we are failing. But Lao Tzu reminds us that this is not the way of the Tao. The more we try to rush life, the more we create stress, disappointment, and unnecessary struggle. Nature shows us that true progress is made slowly, steadily, and effortlessly. A tree does not force itself to grow faster. It simply grows, little by little, day by day. If we applied the same patience to our own lives, we would find a deep sense of peace. We would understand that everything we are working toward, our dreams, our goals, our personal growth, will happen in time. There is no need to rush. Just like nature, if we stay present, take consistent action, and trust the process, we will reach exactly where we need to be. One of the greatest sources of stress in modern life is impatience. People feel like they are running out of time. They compare themselves to others and feel like they are behind. Social media makes this worse, constantly showing us other people's highlights, their achievements, their success, their seemingly perfect lives. This creates an illusion that everyone else is moving faster, that we need to catch up, that we need to push harder. But this kind of thinking only leads to stress and bad decisions. When we are impatient, we make choices out of desperation rather than wisdom. Think about someone who is impatient in their career. Instead of allowing themselves to grow naturally, they take shortcuts, cut corners, or chase quick money rather than long-term fulfillment. They might take a job they hate just because it seems like the fastest way to success. But in doing so, they sacrifice their happiness. Or consider someone who is impatient in relationships. Instead of waiting for the right person, they settle for anyone just to avoid being alone. Later, they realize they rushed into something that wasn't right for them. Impatience makes us force things that should not be forced. It creates unnecessary suffering because it disconnects us from the natural rhythm of life. When we rush, we ignore the wisdom of the present moment. We are so focused on getting to the future that we miss what is happening right now. But the truth is, the present moment is all we ever have. The future will come in its own time, just as a tree bears fruit when the season is right. If we can embrace this understanding, we can free ourselves from the stress of always trying to be somewhere else. In today's world, there is an obsession with speed. People want quick results, instant success, fast transformations. There is an entire industry built around this impatience. Get-rich-quick schemes, fast-track fitness programs, shortcuts to learning. But anything truly valuable in life takes time. There are no shortcuts to mastery, to wisdom, to true success. Think about the most skilled artists, musicians, and athletes. They did not become great overnight. They spent years, sometimes decades, refining their craft. They showed up every day, practicing, improving, failing, and trying again. If they had been obsessed with speed, they would have given up early. But because they trusted the process, they achieved excellence. Personal growth is the same. Many people want to change their habits, improve their mindset, or develop confidence as quickly as possible. They read self-improvement books, watch motivational videos, and expect immediate transformation. But growth does not work that way. It happens slowly, over time. You do not become wise from reading a single book. You do not become strong from going to the gym once. You do not develop inner peace from meditating a few times. True growth comes from consistency, patience, and persistence. The problem with rushing is that it often leads to shallow progress. People who chase quick results may achieve short-term success, but they rarely build something lasting. A tree that grows too fast without strong roots is easily blown over by the wind. A person who builds their life on speed rather than depth will struggle when challenges arise. The most successful people are those who understand the power of time. They do not rush. They trust. They know that if they put in the work, stay patient, and allow things to unfold naturally, they will get to where they want to be. Not by forcing, but by aligning with the natural flow of life. So how do we apply this wisdom in our own lives? The first step is to recognize that everything has its own timing. Just as a river does not rush to the ocean, we do not need to rush our journey. Trust that things will unfold as they should. If you are working toward a goal, focus on taking steady, consistent action rather than obsessing over when you will achieve it. One of the best ways to align with natural timing is to develop a sense of presence. When you focus too much on the future, you disconnect from the present. But the present is where everything happens. When you fully engage with what you are doing right now, whether it's learning, creating, working, or simply enjoying life, you naturally move toward your goals without feeling rushed. Another important principle is to stop comparing yourself to others. Everyone moves at their own pace. Some people succeed early in life, while others take longer to find their path. There is no right timeline. If you are constantly measuring yourself against others, you will always feel like you are behind. But if you trust your own journey, you will realize that you are exactly where you need to be. Finally, practice patience with yourself. Growth takes time, change takes time, healing takes time. If you are working on yourself, do not expect immediate transformation. Celebrate small progress. Trust that even when you cannot see the results yet, you are still moving forward. Just like a seed growing underground, progress is happening even if it is not yet visible. Patience is one of the most valuable skills you can develop in life. It allows you to enjoy the journey rather than constantly stressing about the destination. It gives you the ability to handle setbacks with grace. It helps you stay calm when things do not go according to plan. And most importantly, it allows you to align with the natural flow of life rather than fighting against it. Trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Even when things seem slow, even when progress feels invisible, trust that you are growing. Remember that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. The same is true for you. If you can embrace this wisdom, you will free yourself from unnecessary stress and anxiety. You will learn to enjoy the present moment rather than always chasing the next thing. You will develop the patience to let things unfold in their own time. And in doing so, you will accomplish everything you need, not by forcing, but by flowing. Lao Tzu describes the Tao as something beyond all categories, beyond all distinctions, beyond all attempts to define it. He says, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." What does this mean? It means that the moment we try to define something, we limit it. The Tao is the natural flow of the universe, the force that gives rise to all things, yet it cannot be put into words or confined to a single concept. It simply is. One of the greatest illusions that human beings create is the illusion of duality, this idea that things must always be one way or another. We divide everything into opposites, good versus bad, success versus failure, strong versus weak, right versus wrong. But Lao Tzu teaches that reality is not so rigid. It is fluid, always changing, always connected. Night and day, are not truly opposites. They are part of the same cycle. Life and death are not separate. They are different stages of the same existence. Everything we see as separate is, in reality, part of a greater whole. This idea of duality does not just shape how we see the world, it shapes how we see ourselves. From the moment we are born, we are given labels. We are told who we are, what we should believe, what we should value. But these labels are not who we truly are. They are just mental constructs, created by society, by culture, by the expectations of others. The more we cling to these labels, the more we limit our true potential. The Tao teaches us to go beyond duality, beyond labels, beyond ego. To be like the Tao means to be fluid, to move with life rather than against it. It means letting go of rigid identities and allowing ourselves to grow, evolve, and change. It means understanding that we are not defined by any single idea, belief, or role. We are part of something much greater. One of the biggest obstacles to personal growth is attachment to identity. People spend their lives constructing a sense of self, shaping an image of who they are, what they stand for, what makes them different. While this can provide a sense of stability, it can also become a prison. When we become too attached to an identity, we stop growing, we stop questioning, we become afraid of change, because change threatens the story we tell ourselves about who we are. Think about someone who identifies strongly with their career. If they see themselves only as a doctor, a lawyer, an artist, or an athlete, what happens if they lose that career? They feel lost, as if their entire existence has been taken away. But the truth is, they were never just that label. They were always something more. The same applies to people who define themselves by a single belief system, a political ideology, or a social role. When people cling too tightly to these identities, they become rigid. They resist new perspectives, they reject growth, and they close themselves off to the complexity of life. Lao Tzu warns us against this trap. He reminds us that who we are is not fixed, it is ever-changing, just like nature itself. A river does not insist on staying in one place. It flows freely, adapting to whatever landscape it encounters. If we truly want to live in harmony with the Tao, we must be willing to let go of rigid identities and embrace change. The moment we say, "I am this and only this," we create walls around ourselves. But when we stop defining ourselves so narrowly, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We allow ourselves to grow beyond the limitations of labels and discover new parts of who we are. This is true freedom, not being confined by any one identity, but being open to all of life's experiences. One of the clearest examples of how labels divide us is in the realm of politics and ideology. In today's world, people are more divided than ever. They identify with political parties, religious groups, nationalities, or cultural movements, and they cling to these identities as if they were absolute truths. This leads to tribalism, an us versus them mentality, where people see those who think differently as enemies rather than fellow human beings. Look at how political debates unfold. Instead of people listening to each other with an open mind, they immediately take sides. Instead of discussing ideas, they defend their position as if their identity depended on it. The result? Stagnation, conflict, and an inability to evolve. People no longer seek truth, they seek to be right. They are so attached to their ideological labels that they stop seeing the humanity in others. Lao Tzu's teachings remind us that wisdom comes from seeing beyond these divisions. Truth is not owned by one side or another, it exists beyond human categories. The Tao does not take sides, and neither should we. If we want to truly understand the world, we must let go of rigid beliefs and approach life with curiosity rather than certainty. The strongest minds, are not the ones who cling stubbornly to a single viewpoint, but those who are flexible, willing to question, and open to change. The more we let go of our need to be right, the more we can truly learn. The more we let go of ideological labels, the more we can connect with others on a human level. Imagine a world where people were not obsessed with proving their side was correct, but instead focused on understanding, listening, and learning. This is what it means to move beyond labels, to see life not as a battlefield of competing identities, but as a shared journey where everyone is constantly growing. Freedom is not just about external circumstances, it is about the way we think. Many people believe they are free, but in reality, they are trapped by their own minds. They are trapped by their beliefs, their assumptions, their fears of what others might think. They act not from their true selves, but from the expectations placed upon them by society. When we let go of labels, we free ourselves from these limitations. We stop living according to what others expect and start living according to our own inner truth. We stop trying to fit into a predefined category and start embracing our full, unlimited potential. Think about how liberating it is to admit that you don't have all the answers. To say, I don't know, but I am willing to learn. To step outside of your comfort zone and explore new perspectives. To let go of the need to be seen in a certain way and just be yourself. This is real freedom, not being defined by anything, but being open to everything. Lao Tzu teaches that the wisest people are those who do not cling to rigid identities. They are like the Tao, shapeless, adaptable, flowing. They are not bound by fear, not controlled by ego, not limited by labels. They move with life effortlessly, without resistance, without struggle, and in doing so, they experience true peace. So how can we apply this wisdom in our daily lives? Here are some practical ways to let go of labels and embrace a more fluid way of thinking. Question your own beliefs. Regularly ask yourself, why do I believe this? Be willing to challenge your own ideas and consider new perspectives. Avoid defining yourself too narrowly. Instead of saying, I am this type of person, stay open to change. Allow yourself to evolve. Engage with different viewpoints. Read books, listen to people, and explore ideas that challenge your way of thinking. Growth happens outside of your comfort zone. Practice letting go of ego. Recognize when you are clinging to an identity out of fear or pride. Learn to detach from the need to always be right. Embrace the unknown. Accept that life is fluid, unpredictable, and ever-changing. Trust that you do not need to have everything figured out. By practicing these principles, we align ourselves with the Tao, not rigid, not fixed, but flowing effortlessly with the rhythms of life. When we stop trying to fit into labels, we finally experience the vastness of who we truly are. This is the path to wisdom. This is the path to freedom. We've explored 10 powerful teachings from Lao Tzu, each offering a different way to see the world, approach challenges, and cultivate inner peace. Let's take a moment to reflect on these lessons and how they connect to the bigger picture of life. We began with Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. We learned that true success does not come from forcing things, but from aligning with the natural flow of life. By letting go of excessive effort, we can achieve more with less struggle. Then, we explored the power of softness and adaptability, understanding that just like water, flexibility is stronger than rigidity. By being open to change rather than resisting it, we can navigate life's obstacles with ease. Next, we turned inward with the lesson that knowing others is intelligence, but knowing yourself is true wisdom. We saw that self-awareness is the foundation for all personal growth, and that seeking validation from the outside world only leads to suffering. This led us to the idea that desire is the root of suffering, a reminder that constantly chasing more will never bring lasting happiness. Instead, true fulfillment comes from appreciating what we already have. From there, we examined the paradox of control, how the more we try to grasp, the more we lose. This lesson taught us that letting go of the need to control everything allows life to unfold more naturally. We also explored how simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, realizing that by removing unnecessary complexity, we create space for clarity, peace, and focus. Then, we embraced the wisdom that a good traveler has no fixed plans. This reminded us that overplanning leads to anxiety, and that trusting the journey, rather than obsessing over the destination, opens us up to unexpected opportunities. We also saw that true power lies in not needing power, as the strongest leaders are not those who dominate, but those who serve and uplift others. Finally, we learned that nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished, a profound insight that taught us the value of patience and trusting the natural timing of things. And in our last chapter, we explored how being like the Tao means going beyond labels and ego, freeing ourselves from the constraints of identity, and embracing the fluidity of life. The Tao is not something to be mastered, but something to be lived. These teachings are not just abstract ideas. They are practical tools for transforming the way we experience life. But it's important to remember that the Tao is not something to be mastered. It's not a rigid philosophy with strict rules. It's not a checklist of things to achieve. Instead, it is something to be lived. The Tao is the way things are, the flow of existence, the underlying rhythm of life itself. Our task is not to control it, but to align ourselves with it. This journey is not about perfection. You don't need to apply all of these teachings overnight. You don't need to force yourself to change everything at once. The Taoist approach is gentle. It is about gradual shifts, about small changes in perspective that eventually lead to profound transformation. Start with what resonates most with you. Maybe that means practicing patience, learning to let go of control, or simplifying your life. Maybe it means becoming more self-aware or embracing uncertainty instead of fearing it. Wherever you begin, trust that even small steps will guide you toward a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment. One of the most freeing aspects of Taoism is that it does not demand struggle. It does not tell you to fight against yourself or the world. It simply invites you to flow, to observe nature and learn from it, to trust that life is not something to be conquered, but something to be experienced. The river does not resist its course. It simply moves forward, adjusting as needed. The tree does not force itself to grow. It simply reaches for the sun, day by day. The Tao reminds us that we too are part of this natural order. And when we stop resisting, when we stop forcing, when we stop trying to impose our will upon life, we find that life takes care of itself. So, as we come to the end of this video, I invite you to reflect on your own journey. Are there areas in your life where you are forcing instead of flowing? Are you holding on to control when you could be letting go? Are you caught in the cycle of desire, always chasing more, instead of appreciating what is already here? There is no rush, no deadline, no perfect way to apply these lessons. The beauty of the Tao is that it is always here, always accessible, always available to those who seek it. The more you align with it, the more effortless life becomes. Not because challenges disappear, but because your way of moving through them changes. If these teachings resonated with you, I encourage you to experiment with them in your daily life. Observe how nature operates. Pay attention to the moments where simplicity brings more clarity than complexity. Notice when letting go feels more powerful than holding on. And most importantly, trust that wherever you are right now, you are exactly where you need to be.